Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to share with you some very big news out of STRD, formerly MicroStrategy. They just announced a brand new preferred share offering that could attract income-focused investors. So let's break down what's going on and go over their entire lineup of offerings that you as an investor can consider for your portfolio. But before I get into the video, please smash that like button so the algorithm gods know that I'm here, and hit subscribe if you're new so you know whenever I go live where I talk about finance news, stocks, investing, or I publish a new video like the one you're watching. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. All right, so for those who don't know, STRD is a US-based software and data analytics company that is better known for one thing and one thing only, and that is Bitcoin. Under Michael Saylor, the company basically transformed itself from a traditional tech firm into one of the largest corporate holders of Bitcoin in the world. And they just recently announced a new preferred share offering. All right, STRD announces proposed initial public offering of STRD stock. So what are they doing with the money? All right, let's take a look. All right, STRD says that the proceeds will go towards general corporate purposes, of course, right, which includes buying more Bitcoin, shocker there, and boosting their working capital. All right, so of course, all the preferred shares that they came out with, STRK, and now STRD, and, their convertible notes and shares of MSTR, it's all being used to buy more Bitcoin. All right. So what is the dividend structure? Because this was actually really, really interesting when you read this thing. All right. Here's the details for STRD. It comes with a 10% annual dividend, but it's non-cumulative, meaning that dividends are not guaranteed. They're only paid if the board declares them. And if the dividend is skipped, well, you don't get it later, it's gone. All right. If declared, dividends will be paid quarterly starting September 30th, 2025, and they'll be paid in cash only. Now, just to put this out there, I can't see STRD not paying out their dividends. All right. I don't think they want that reputation. And I think, honestly, investors would shy away from something like this. So it's just, some thoughts that, come to mind when looking at this thing. But again, you guys be, the best judge for your own portfolios. Again, just looking at this and them putting that language in there, I think it's just basically to cover their butt. All right. But they included something really, really interesting here. They included a redemption clause. All right. STRD built in flexibility. They can redeem all STRD shares for cash if the number of outstanding shares drops below 25% of the original issue. All right, they're going to IPO, I think, 2.5 million shares. All right, they can also redeem all the shares if there's a tax-related event. I think this is so, so important. All right, and I'll tell you why. But in either case, you'd receive the liquidation preference plus any declared but unpaid dividends. But again, not any skip dividends. All right, this is the reason why I think this tax event thing was put in here. It's because of this. There was earlier in the year, STRD had a basically, if you want to call it a hit piece put out on them by the Wall Street Journal, that MicroStrategy may owe taxes on $19 billion of unrealized Bitcoin gains. And this is because of the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, right? However, there was a letter sent to the IRS by Coinbase and MicroStrategy basically requesting an exemption, right? But nothing has come from that. We have not seen anything new come from that. We haven't heard anything. Michael Saylor hasn't mentioned anything. So I have not seen any new positive developments with that, but I think this is them just preparing for an event like that. All right. But again, under this current administration, I could see them getting that exemption. All right. But going back to the press release here. All right. They also included something else in here. The fundamental change. All right. There's some protection for shareholders. All right. People who own STRD preferred shares. All right. If a fundamental change happens, like a merger, a delisting, or a major restructuring, well, STRD can buy back the STRD shares at the same liquidation value plus any declared but unpaid dividends. All right. So there is some protection for investors here. All right. So really just to recap and, summarize this whole thing. All right. STRD offers a 10% yield, non-cumulative risk there. All right. You may not get paid a dividend. I think, again, I can't see that happening. There's probably be a little bit of limited upside here. And there's no conversion. Okay, this is a big one. A lot of people liked the STRK preferred shares because they convert. But with these ones, they do not convert. Okay, so that's a big deal. These will not convert to those regular MSTR shares in the event, MSTR or STRD goes up in value. So just something to think about, of course. All right, but let's look at their other offerings, okay? Because I think this is also very important that we understand what exactly is this whole ecosystem of offerings that they have. All right, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the capital stack. All right, but we have MSTR. This is their common stock. All right, this is what you know, like, and love. We have their STRK, which offers a 8% dividend down here. We also have their STRF, which offers a 10% dividend. And we have debt, right? Convertible notes. These are offered only to institutional investors. You, as a retail investor, cannot buy these directly. All right, but they found a way to make it available to retail investors, and that is from RexShares, okay? That is from RexShares. They created the BMAX ETF, and this is a Bitcoin corporate treasury convertible bond ETF. So this is an institution that basically bought those convertible notes, and now they ETF'd it into, into an ETF that allows investors to basically buy it. So this is not a video on this, ETF, but if you guys want to check it out, I'll put a link down below in the description for you guys. In case you are, I don't believe it pays any type of a dividend. All right. But as you guys can see here, it does hold those convertible notes right here. All right. So now we have this new ETF, or excuse me, we have this new preferred share coming out. But let's look at what all of these are. All right. So we can get a better idea of how these can fit into our portfolios as investors. Okay. So just a quick summary on all of this. Okay. There's the Series A Perpetual STRD preferred stock. All right. Ticker STRD. It offers a 10% annual non-cumulative dividend. All right. There's no conversion. All right. Seniority on the capital stack is junior to both STRF and STRK, okay? It offers the highest yield among Strategy's preferred stocks, but with the higher risk, all right, due to a non-cumulative dividend, okay? That is just something to keep in mind. Of course, I, again, can't imagine Strategy's board not approving a dividend. I think that would honestly piss off a lot of investors, all right? You also have STRF, right, which is another preferred stock, ticker STRF. This pays a 10% annual dividend. This is cumulative with a potential to increase to 18% if it's unpaid. All right. So that is really, really attractive. You have, some risk hedging there in case they don't pay that dividend. It continues to accumulate, which is really, really nice. But there's no conversion. All right. These will not convert to shares of MSTR. All right. Seniority on the capital stack is higher than STRK. All right. Providing more security in the capital structure, but it's designed for income focused investors. All right. Seeking a little more stability. All right. Now we have the STRK, and this one was the first lineup that came out, all right, earlier this year. STRK, or STRK, provides an 8% annual cumulative dividend, okay? It does convert, all right? This will actually convert to, 0.1 share of MSTR per STRK if MSTR trades at or above $1,000. So if you're bullish on Bitcoin, you would by proxy be very bullish on MSTR. And if MSTR's price, goes up in value because of Bitcoin, eventually you could, in theory, hit $1,000 of MSTR shares, and then your STRK would be converted into that, right? So you could make out like a bandit, but of course, nothing is set in stone. There is no promise of tomorrow. All right, seniority, it is above common stock, but it is below STRF. All right, it offers a blend of fixed income and potential equity upside, which is always, always attractive. And here we have the common stock. All right, this is MSTR is the ticker. It doesn't pay a dividend. All right, there's no conversion. This is just common equity. You actually own little bits and pieces of MSTR, the company of strategy. Seniority, it sits the lowest on the capital stack, and this is very important, all right? Features the highest volatility, of course, because it is a proxy to Bitcoin's performance, which if you're, again, a believer in Bitcoin, then you would like a stock like MSTR. Again, Michael Saylor is on record for saying that he wanted to provide institutions who couldn't buy Bitcoin directly a way to buy Bitcoin, and that is through MSTR, right? That is through the stock. And not only that, he believes that, MSTR is a, leveraged Bitcoin, so to speak. All right. So there is, some attractiveness to this MSTR stock. All right. So let's look at the capital stack. Now, I'm not here to scare you, but I think it is very educational to actually understand what the capital stack is, just so it makes us better investors, because I didn't know what a preferred share was or even preferred stock. All right. But there's something called a capital stack that all businesses have, right? It's their debt, their equity, etc. So basically, this is the way you look at it. If STRD were to go out of business, its capital stack would determine the order in which investors are paid during a liquidation event, assuming there are any assets left after settling liabilities. I mean, they're sitting on so much Bitcoin, it can't happen, right? In theory, it can't happen. But if it was to happen, convertible notes, those institutional owners would get paid first. Okay, those institutions, those BMAX holders, they would get paid first. Obviously, they sit the highest on the capital stack. Then you have STRF preferred stock. Those holders would get paid second. Then STRK preferred stockholders would get paid third. Then STRD, and then MSTR common stockholders. All right. So I'm just sharing this because I think it's fascinating and I think it is important to understand. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot of value from it, and I hope, that you learned something new. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Let me know down below, is this a stock or is this a, preferred share or preferred stock worth, getting into? What are your thoughts? Would you still rather just own MSTR shares over, the STRD preferred stock? Interesting. MSTR is just a really interesting company. The more I learn about it, the more fascinated I am by MSTR and the many different ways that they're able to maneuver the equity markets to basically raise money to buy Bitcoin. So again, I think it's just a fascinating business model and a fascinating company. So with that being said, guys, I'll see you in the next video. You guys have a wonderful day.